produced by Ippei Kuri, written by Jinzo Toriumi. Production company originally was Tatsunoko Productions. It was later licensed to Sandy Frank Productions for the American version, and then ADV Films and Sentai Filmworks. The original run was October 1 of 1972 to September 29th of 1974, with a runtime of 30 minutes per episode. What it's about. The series centers around five young superhero ninjas employed by Katsuburo Nambu of the fictitious International Science Organization, ISO, to oppose an international or intergalactic terrorist organization of technologically advanced villains known as Galactor, who are trying to control Earth's natural resources such as water, oil, sugar, and uranium. The leader of Galactor is an androgynous masked antagonist named Bird Katse, who is later revealed to be a shape-shifting mutant acting on the orders of an alien leader known as Leader X. Their mecha monsters are often animal-based. Most of the team are in their late teens, except for Jinpei, who is about 10 or 11 years old. The members are Ken Washio, the team leader and tactical expert, Joe Asakura, his second in command, who is a marksman and weapons expert, as well as an expert driver. June, the team's electronics and demolitions expert. Jinpei, their reconnaissance expert and adopted brother of June. And Ryo Nakanishi, who is the ship pilot for what they call the God Phoenix, or the God ship Phoenix, or just the Phoenix. I like to call it the Phoenix myself because I never really get the God part of it myself. I don't know why. I just never have. The main characters wear team clothing with T-shirts numbered to show their rank in the team, or caped bird-like battle uniforms, as you can see here on the image. The Science Ninja team is often aided by a squadron of combat pilots led by the enigmatic Red Impulse, who was later revealed to be Ken's father. The Gatchaman team employs a unique and effective martial art developed by Dr. Nambu, drawing on their ability to perform feats similar to their avian namesakes, such as high-speed running and flight, high jumping, and silent attacks. This fighting system, known as the Science Ninja Technique, is mentioned in the Japanese lyrics of the Gatchaman theme, which is not what I was playing. I was playing Battle of the Planets theme because it's shorter and easier to cut down and less likely to get tagged. The team members use their signature weapons and mecha-style vehicles as well, each with a mundane disguised form. To change modes, each member is equipped with a wrist device that, in addition to communications and tracking, enables a change when the proper gesture and voice command, Bird Go, is given, or in the Battle of the Planets version, the command is Transmute. So we're going to go straight to the episodes. We're not going to talk about each individual character and what their backgrounds are. If you want to go check that out, I recommend going back to the first episode. That's all covered in there. We're going to start with episode 21, known as Who is Leader X? The plot. A horse owned by a doctor who is an authority in the area of cyborgs participates and wins with an astonishing performance at the world-famous Horse Grand Prix. When Nambu watches the video, he deducts that this horse is a cyborg. In other words, it cheated. He orders the Science Ninja team to guard the doctor so that his astonishing cyborg techniques are not abused. But when Ken and the others arrive at the doctor's home, it's already too late. Only one Galactor badge has been left behind, and the doctor has vanished. Dr. Honeyman has been brought to the base where he recognizes Leader X's voice. He threatens X, saying that he'll reveal his secret if he is not made X's representative. X reluctantly agrees, which puts him over and in charge of everything, including Bird Katse, which Katse is not pleased about. But he builds a bunch of cyborgs horses for Galactor, and they attack a meadow. The Science Ninja team pursue them and sneak onto the base. Inside, they find the doctor standing before X to reveal his face, just as he wanted. but the doctor falls down as he's hit by light rays projected by X on the screen when Katse presses a button. Katse then orders these horses to attack the city and flees the base. The Science Ninja team escapes and blows up the base, taking the doctor with them. But the doctor is dying, so he tells them to press the buttons on the horses' backs. After they have done this, which, they have to go land on every horse one at a time while they're trying to stampede here and activate their self-destructive mechanisms. But they do it, and they get off the horses, and he activates the mechanism, and the horses blow up, and he dies himself. This is not the smartest written episode. As usual, the person knows who the bad guys are and where to find them, dies without revealing any of the information. I find it kind of silly that the team had to jump from horse to horse to hit the self-destruct buttons while the horses are stampeding towards a town. Just doesn't quite work for me, I guess. Hitting a few of them up front should have started a chain reaction of explosions to wipe out the group, or a bird missile to blow up a large enough hole in the ground could have had them fall in and to stop advancing towards the town, and then they could have had hit one of those self-destruct buttons and had a chain reaction explosion that way. Either way would have been much smarter, in my opinion. Anyway, it's a 2 out of 5 for this particular episode. Episode 22, The Firebird versus the Fire-Breathing Dragon. The plot, a uranium mining factory at the bottom of the sea is attacked by the Mecha King Dragon. Since a guard vessel with much more power than the Phoenix was beaten during the attack, Nambu does not order the Science Ninja team deployed, but Ken disobeys Nambu's orders and goes to face the Mecha in the Phoenix. But the Phoenix is no match for the enemy, and even their trump card, the Firebird, cannot win. It gets beaten by the much higher temperatures that the King Dragon can present. Nambu orders Red Impulse Group to attack the Mecha, but the Red Impulse commander believes that Ken should face this enemy again and refuses Nambu's order. So Nambu has to come up with another plan. Instead of fire, we'll go with ice. He installs a cooling device inside the Phoenix, which is then supposed to react with a minus bomb, which is a temperature bomb that drops all the temperatures to minus degrees, to be installed in the interior of the King Dragon Mecha to freeze the enemy. Knowing that this will be very dangerous, Ken applies for the job of installing the minus bomb. Hiding in a swarm of fish, he sneaks on into the Mecha underwater. He succeeds in placing the bomb, but he has no time to escape as the Mecha starts to freeze from the icy Firebird when they go face off against the Phoenix for a second time. The ninja team is worried and begins wondering if Ken survived when he suddenly appears in front of them from a crack in the Mecha like an immortal bird. This story is okay. The science was a bit oversimplified, but it is a kid's show, so I'm not too bothered by it. I don't know how Ken supposedly survived the deep freeze of the minus bomb, but I also know they're not going to kill one of their lead characters. So you're just going to have to go with it. And it's a 3 out of 5. Episode 23 is The Mecha Ball Runs Wild. The plot. From the cellar of a bowling alley, the Mecha Ball appears and starts to destroy a city. Because of the Mecha Ball's simple structure, any attack is futile since there's no weak point. It's all just, simple, round thing. Opposing his 4 eager teammates who want to go face it, Ken decides not to go out, saying if they attack with a chance of winning, they're only going to die a useless death. At the same time, Ken watches Junpei move a pachinko ball with a magnet, and he gets an idea of how to defeat the Mecha. So he gives Nambu a proposal, and Nambu agrees. This is going to possibly work. They're going to build a giant electrical magnet in the middle of the Alps and lure the Mecha to the magnet that will destroy the ball. But with the Mecha lured halfway towards its destination, it changes its course to an international nuclear plant. Ken wants to get into the Mecha himself and steer it toward the magnet. Joe wants to stop him, but Ken convinces him and flies away from the Phoenix. Getting in the Mecha alone by himself, Ken defeats the Galactic members inside and changes the course of the mecha. He destroys the steering mechanisms, making sure that the course cannot be changed again, and now it's back on course towards the magnet. As June holds her breath and watches, the mecha ball is drawn toward the magnet and explodes. Ken's figure is reflected in the tear-filled eyes of the four teammates as they see his reflection, similar to a bird flying in the sky as he escapes the explosion. Good science, decent writing. Again, you have to wonder how Ken escapes certain death at the end, but again, you know he's not going to get killed. You just have to roll with it. So, 3 out of 5. Episode 24, The Neon Giant That Smiles in the Dark. Scientists from the ISO headquarters are being murdered one after another by Galactor. Nambu orders the Science Ninja team to act as bodyguards for other people, but not himself, because he's not smart like that. Even though he's a doctor, he's not very smart. The ninja team separate for their guard duty. During Ken's guard, he surprisingly meets Galactor's ninja blackbirds and follows them, but loses sight of them near an amusement park. At the same time, June and Jinpei are attacked by a neon giant, which appeared accompanied by the sounds of a flute. In order to let the scientists that they were guarding escape, they offer themselves as bait, but they fall off of the cliff of the road into a ravine. June reports that the neon giant resembles the giant Indian statue standing before the amusement park where the blackbirds vanished. Because of this, the ninja team waits for the night to fall and sneaks into the park to start investigating. Since June said she heard the sounds of a flute, Ken follows a flutist who leads him into an underground base. Of course, this flutist is Bird Katse in disguise. Katse tells Ken that this night Nambu will be assassinated. Ken gets in contact with Joe and Ryu, telling them to hurry back to Nambu's location as he's caught in an attack from the Blackbirds. He's fighting like 7 or 8 different ninjas by himself. Before his eyes, Katse steers the neon giant with the flute's tune towards the ISO headquarters where Nambu is in his offices. When Jun and Jinpei intervene, Ken flings the flute away and orders Jinpei to play it. Through Jinpei's nonsensical tune, the neon giant overheats and explodes just as it's about to attack Nambu, and Joe and Ryu wouldn't have had any chance to stop it, but because Jinpei stops it, the plan to assassinate Nambu has failed. What I thought of this episode? Well, I liked the design of the mecha and how they hit it. I really like the Blackbird Ninja team, and I think they should have been used more in the series. So far, they haven't. This is the only time I've really seen them, is this one episode. Hopefully, I'll see them again in future episodes. The story was well done, but I do think Nambu should have been toast. But again, these characters can't die. It's just, we can't have the bad things happen to the lead characters. So this is a 3 out of 5 as well. Episode 25, The Magma Giant, Emperor of Hell. An ISO volcanic research center is attacked. The Phoenix, starting the investigation, is surprised when the magma giant escapes into the sea where the giant cannot follow. Oh, they're surprised by the magma giant, and they escape into the sea where the giant cannot follow it because it would just turn into rock from the seawater. When Joe says the magma giant's face resembles the face of Jesus Christ sculptured into a deep slope at the national park, the science ninja team goes there to investigate. A girl climbing the Jesus Christ sculpture is suspected to be a Galactor agent by Joe and questioned, but she answers that she's here to sculpture the statue, continuing the tradition of her family in the 3rd generation of doing so. Together with this girl, they go to the cave and found in the steep slope and discover a base. In fact, the Jesus Christ face sculpted into the slope is plunged into lava, seething into the interior of the base, and it comes out as the magma giant. Seeing this, Ken then alerts the Phoenix, and Ryu shows up, and they get back on the ship. At the top of the base, there's a special glass, which is actually at the bottom of the sea. The sea is used as a lens to heat the magma using sunlight. With a bird missile rocket, they break the glass and thus destroy the base. But the magma giant is still on the loose. So a message comes in from Nambu that the magma giant is heading toward the city, and they split up into their individual machines and lure the giant towards the sea. The magma giant isn't particularly well controlled. It doesn't resist, and it steps out into the sea. And through the seawater, it's instantly cooled and becomes a black piece of rock standing still. The girl then gets her chisel and begins sculpting again on the now frozen magma giant to resculpture the face. This is one of the weaker episodes, in my opinion. Wasn't really into this one. 2 out of 5. Episode 26, The God Phoenix Reborn. The plot is ISO ships are attacked one after another by Galactor's black manta ray monster. And because Ryu is napping in the Phoenix, it isn't mobilized, and Gatchaman team isn't deployed, and people die, and he basically blames himself. He feels responsible for the damage and deaths caused by the ray, and he resigns from the team, giving Nambu back his bracelet while shaking off his teammates who want him to stay. And, it's okay, we forgive you. He just doesn't want to forgive himself at the point. He then goes back to the fishing village where he was born. During this time, the fishing areas in the village have become polluted through unknown causes. Since Ryu's father is the cooperative head for the fishing cooperative, he is blamed by the village people. Well, Ryu knows that something's off here, so he tells his father to contact Nambu to analyze the seawater. Nambu does this, and in the analysis, a matter is found which results from a process to produce metal. Nambu thinks that this is Galactor's doing and arrives in the fishing village with the Science Ninja team to investigate. Now, Ryu is annoyed that the others have come here because the village does not know that he's a former member of the team. Ryu and his younger brother go scuba diving and see the manta ray ship, but Ryu tells his younger brother not to tell anyone. He'll investigate this on his own and take down Galactor by himself to prove himself worthy of the team again in his mind. But he gets captured by Galactor and ends up missing. His little brother spills the beans to Ken, who then goes searching for Galactor's base and finds it, but gets captured as well. But the duo team up, and when they succeed in barely escaping, Galactor is about to deploy an armada of those manta ray machines to attack the world. The two men lock themselves up in the command center room and defeat Galactor by turning in all the water flow into the base, flooding the base. But they wind up getting trapped inside the command room themselves, and they have no escape, and they will drown. Ken reports this to Nambu, and that the destruction of the base has been accomplished by Ryu, and requests that he be taken back into active service before he dies, so that they can do a proper burial or whatever. The two men who are waiting for their death are rescued by Jinpei in the G4 machine at the last possible moment. Back on the surface, after they get out of the water, Ryu receives his bracelet back from Nambu, and they take him back home on the Phoenix, and the village isn't any the wiser that he's a member of the team. So that's that. What did I think of this one? It was nice to see a little bit of Ryu's backstory and family after a fashion. The course of the episode was pretty obvious in terms of the plot, but the story is well written, and the actor performances are above average in this episode, particularly for the Ryu character. And of course, I knew he would come back to the team, but for the life of me, I really do wish there were backup members with different bird call signs. I mean, they're supposed to be able to be killed or injured, and anytime that this happens, they can't operate as a complete team. They can't operate the Phoenix ship, other things, that make them ineffective, and that just seems rather silly to me. Rating 4 out of 5. Episode 27. Galactor's Witch Racer. The plot. The ISO gets a message from Lucy, who is supposedly one of the executives at Galactor. I didn't know Galactor had executives, but okay, more like a secretary, I would think, but whatever. She wants to reveal the location of their headquarters in exchange for $10 million or $10 billion. I can't remember exactly which one. I think it was million, but billion sounds actually more accurate. Anyway, they contact Lucy by having Condor Joe team up with her in the World Customer Car Endurance Race across Africa. The 4 other team members are going to act as guards for their scout. After Joe gets into the car, he expects the information immediately, but Lucy says that's not possible until the rally is over. Lucy and Joe somehow know each other in their pasts. On the way, they are attacked by mechas camouflaged as animals. Galactor has come to know of Lucy's treason, but with Ken and the others' help, they escape the attacks and continue the rally. As they approach the finish line, Lucy and ask Joe why they don't want to whether or not they don't want to team up and just take over Galactor themselves. Joe is skeptical and wants the information to just shut down Galactor once and for all. He doesn't want to take over the Galactor. He just wants to end them because Galactor killed his parents. He wants revenge. Evading all the obstacles, the team of Lucy and Joe win the race, and they get $100,000 in prize money. Big deal, right? It is in 1972. Anyway, in the team room, Joe demands that Lucy give him the information as offered, but when Lucy tries to give it to him, she suddenly starts to move strangely and finally gets up out of her chair and charges and breaks through a wall and falls stories to the ground where she explodes into pieces. It turns out she was a cyborg manufactured by Galactor, and a radio signal emitted by Leader X caused her to self-destruct. Now, whether this is a duplicate of the Lucy that Joe knew in the past or if she was always a cyborg isn't really known or explained. But Joe is taken aback by this discovery, who's now, as Lucy is now nothing but a pile of iron fragments. This builds his anger towards Galactor once again. This is kind of a predictable ending to the story. I didn't expect that she was a cyborg, but I did know that Galactor would have some way of remote control killing her, and that she would end up not being able to talk and tell him where anything was. Maybe a microchip in the brain or the heart that would lead to an immediate death, perhaps. So there really wasn't anything that was going to happen. I just kind of, instead of telling him, I wish there had been like some sort of other way of doing it. So that if she died, here you go. Here's the information you need, but that's not going to happen. So anyway, it's a 3 out of 5, mostly because, again, the acting in this episode's pretty good. The story's all right. Like I said, the ending is a little bit cliche, but otherwise I'd give it a 4. But the ending kind of drops at 1. Mm-hmm. Episode 28, The Invisible Devil. Plot: children keep dissolving into thin air. Even the members of the Science Ninja Team become eyewitnesses to one of these disappearances. Ken follows some tire tracks on the ground and enters a mirror maze as he's trying to find out what happened to the kid that he saw disappear. There he discovers some snail mechas, but they become transparent and disappear inside the maze. Galactor is collecting these children who have strong brainwaves in order to produce a brainwave monster called Alpha Gila. This monster is like a brainwave amoeba type creature, and it attacks places, and it attacks like laboratories and secret bases and stuff, and it reads the secrets of the ISO and its institutions and then destroys those institutions. Nambu enhances June's brainwaves for a while to make her pose so that she can pose as bait, because, that's what we do with the girl, always make her the bait. They do this all the time on this show for some reason. It's like, why not? You would think that they would let Jinpei be the bait in this case because he's younger, and that's what they're taking as younger kids. But anyway, they locate a radio signal and sneak onto the base beneath the mirror maze, and they save children. But based on the information that they've already obtained, Katsei is going to storm a uranium storage room in the desert. Because the interior of the room becomes a mirror dome, the mechas, which snuck in and should be transparent, become visible, and it turns out that the storage room in the desert that they were after the uranium in is a trap that Nambu and the ninja team set up for them. Now they can act. The snail mecha has fallen to the trap Nambu has prepared. The mechas are thrown aside by the fast approaching Phoenix, and the Science Ninja team thinks that they finally have cornered Katse for sure this time, but he gets away again, disappearing in blue-white flames. The writers must like this concept because they keep coming back to using children as weapons more than once in this series. It's a very interesting episode, but they really don't explain how the Alpha Gia monster works very well. I wish they had, because it's one of the cooler threats the team have had to face. And unfortunately, the snail tanks that were invisible were kind of lame, comparatively speaking. I would have preferred to see more of the Alpha Gia monster and having them have to fight that creature rather than trace down the snail tanks. But that's just me. Rating 3 out of 5. Episode 29, Galactus, the Demon Man. Jinpei and Ryu visit the Shirayaki orphanage where Jinpei grew up. And when he was, well, not when he grew up. It shouldn't say grew up there. Where he was found by June and adopted in order to play with some of his former friends. The children begged them to take him to watch some kickboxing event nearby. At the same time, in a volcanic area, which is right above and behind where the orphanage is, strange things are happening. Ken, Joe, and June go to investigate, but they don't find anything out of the ordinary. After watching the fight, the children go to ask the winner, Galactus X, for an autograph, but they learn, however, that he was trained using deadly weapons and was using spiked weapons in his boxing gloves, and that's how I was able to beat his opponent. They freak out, and they're caught by the female assistant and then taken away and thrown into the back of a car. This is because Galactus is actually a mecha. And they've discovered this, and they'll reveal its secrets. Ryu, following Galactus by Jinpei's request, battles with Galactus, trying to get to the kids, but he gets hurt in the process. Jinpei gets there and sees what's going on, but he has to follow the kids. So he gets in his Jeep and chases after the car who have stolen the kids from the orphanage. It gave him some medical attention. He sneaks into a building behind the orphanage. This turns out to be a Galactor base, and the assistant manager that was with Galactus was actually Katse in disguise. Katse intends to have the now inactive volcano erupt and burn the city. Jinpei's clacker, I'm trying to think of it, boom sling, I guess you can call it. They hit the switch and caused the volcano eruption to begin early. Katse escapes in a rocket just as the ninja team arrive, and they defeat Galactus, who is now grown into a giant mecha, and they see the children, but the lava is flowing out of the mountain in the direction of the city. They get all the kids out of the orphanage, but it burns the orphanage down and continues on its way. The lava does. Despite his injuries, Ryu arrives flying into Phoenix, and they unite and destroy the mountain with a bird missile rocket, succeeding in damming up the lava. The city is saved, but the orphanage is completely destroyed. Later, we see the science team starting to rebuild it together with the children. It's a decent episode all in all. I didn't buy into them rebuilding the orphanage at the end, though. With the volcano having just erupted, it would have been much smarter for the ISO to simply buy a new, safer location and the team be remodeling that for the kids. And despite what they were implying for Ryu's injuries, he didn't seem to be hurt enough to convince me that he needed to be problematic for flying the Phoenix later on. And again, this is the notion of one of them getting injured or maimed or whatever and discombobulating the team, and it's just silly. But they just got to keep going with that. Rating 3 out of 5. Episode 30 is Kamasaral, the Guillotine Iron Beast. The plot is a water shortage is occurring everywhere. as if to pursue a beaten enemy. An invisible enemy continues to ground and destroying dams and water tanks. The Earth is put into a grave situation as the water shortage is global. The Phoenix is mobilized and discovers that the flying mecha, Kamasura, which is actually sort of a white shadow in the sky, merely flying past it causes great damage to the ship, and their missiles are useless since they can be cut apart by the mecha sickle. They somehow escape and report back to Nambu, but they can't do anything against this mecha. During this time, an announcement from Bertkatse is received saying that tomorrow will be the last day for mankind. Nambu guesses that the mecha will attack a nearby nuclear power plant next in order to create turbulences in a vacuum, which are regarded to be the mecha's weak point. A plan to create artificial rain is changed to the size of a typhoon. Equipped with a special filter, the Phoenix goes to the power plant and succeeds to lure the mecha to the test area for the artificial rainfall. But while waiting for the artificial typhoon, the Phoenix is caught by the mecha and has to in their struggle because their missiles have no effect, and the Phoenix, caught in the sickle of the mecha, is being drawn into the typhoon together with the mecha, and the sickle is actually cutting into the chassis of the ship, and it's going to probably destroy the ship. But once the force of the mecha, once they get inside the center of the typhoon, the force of the mecha sickle is diminished because of the thunderstorm's abilities, and the Phoenix is able to escape. The mecha is drawn into the eye of the typhoon and the vacuum, and it explodes. The Earth's crisis is over as regular rain starts to go and start doing, giving us back some water. Of course, if we're having that much of a drought that's globalized, the amount of rain that would have to fall would lead to a flood of epic proportions. So, yeah, kind of a weird ending. It's an interesting plan by Galactor, though. The episodes where the writers really come up with a plan that seems to work well, and the team is overmatched like this and has to try and think things through to resolve things, tend to be better episodes. And this is a little bit better episode than most. It's 3.5 out of 5. Episode 31, The Plot to Assassinate Dr. Nambu. Nambu's car is attacked by Galactor, but because Joe is driving the car, they manage to avoid being killed. But they do go off a bridge and into a body of water, and the assassin throws a bomb, which is in the shape of a rose, and he remembers this from when he was a child, so he basically drags Nambu to safety, and they escape by a hair's breadth. Everyone wants to fully concentrate on protecting Nambu since he's the one being targeted, but Joe doesn't agree with them, and he leaves the villa because he knows who's in charge and who did the attack, basically, and he wants to go after them instead. In order to control his anger, he runs his car around a racetrack. When his parents were murdered, he too suffered a wound by a rose bomb, because the person who assassinated his parents is the same one who tried to just assassinate Nambu. And when he went to try and go after her, she dropped a rose bomb in front of him. That's how he remembers the rose bomb. His memories revive and he thinks of revenge. Just then he has to save a woman from an accident on the track. Before parting, they make an appointment to race on the track together the following day. But when he leaves the woman at her destination, he notices that her seeming employer slaps her in the face for arriving late. Unfortunately, he has to get back to ISO headquarters to meet up with the others, so he figures he'll ask the woman about what happened when he sees her next. Meanwhile, Nambu boards the cross-continent train that he has to go on to get to a certain location for some investigation work, along with supposedly ISO Chief Anderson's secretary, in order to conduct this investigation. Ken thinks that this is a Galactor trap and boards a train with him as Nambu's assistant. The remaining three team members hide and wait for the Devil Stars, who are the assassins who tried to kill Nambu in the beginning of the story, in their individual machines. Ken defeats the Devil Star members on the train, but the secretary, it turns out to be the female commander of the Devil Stars, manages to flee in a disc-shaped plane. June defeats the Devil Star members who want to destroy the tracks of the train further ahead. Joe faces off against the last remaining Devil Star member because he knew the spot where they were going to try and attack through a feather shuriken left by Ken on a map when he got back to headquarters. Their respective weapons clash. The Rose Bomb pierces the Devil Star's chest along with his feather shuriken. They go past each other, and behind Joe's back, the Devil Star's mask falls away. It turns out that it's the girl that Joe was planning to meet up and race. And, of course, the bomb blows up and the person's gone. Nambu is safe, and Joe then goes to the track the next day to await his newfound friend, unaware of the tragedy that has befallen. What do I think of this one? This is one of my favorite episodes because of the ending. I'm sure that Joe could have pursued the matter to look for her and discover the truth, but it just seems like the poor guy can't catch a break with the women. They're always Galactor scum trying to kill him. Another point between this episode and episode 29 is that Bird Katse seems to be possibly revealed to be a woman. Remember that Katse was the manager for the kickboxer mecha that destroyed Jinpei's orphanage. This was an interesting reveal, and it changes the way you watch Katse's appearance and behaviors as the series continues. This is a 4.5 star episode. Episode 32, The Grand Gazora Operation, Part 1. Galactor is targeting Long Park City, in which the ISO has used all of its resources to complete, which is kind of silly, but okay. The Mecha Gazora appears and starts to attack the city. The Phoenix confronts it, but the mecha escapes through the use of a smoke screen. Receiving a warning from Galactor, the ninja team mixes with the other citizens and starts to investigate around the city. They think this might be a Galactor trap, however, so they take off their bracelets, stupidly, and split up in the city. While searching, June and Jinpei save a woman who is being attacked by violent criminals, and they get invited back to the woman's manor house. June thinks this is kind of suspicious, but she does accept the invitation on purpose. The woman ushers them inside and invites them to a delicious and abundant meal. Jinpei falls asleep because he overate and because there's a drug in the coffee, and June realizes that he's drugged, and then June pretends to drink and fall asleep as well. She's trying to watch, or at least be aware of her surroundings very carefully. When the woman orders her men to kill them, June comes to life awake and fights off as many as she can, but she does get overpowered because there's like 7 or 8 of them. She does try to keep a cover, claiming that she's a city police officer, but the woman is convinced that she's part of the Science Ninja team and locks the both of them in a subterranean prison. The lady of the house is inferred to be Bird Katse here as well. Ken and the others get worried when June and Jinpei don't show up at their agreed time and location, and they split up again to search for them. Meanwhile, Gazora tries to lure the remaining 2 members of the Science Ninja team into the open by attacking a chemical factory. This is the end of Part 1. It's a decent, if not somewhat predictable story. Of course, the team is now disabled since June and Jinpei are captured, and they have no way to contact the others. And it always makes me think that they should just have an extra communication device somewhere on their bodies in the event that the wristband gets stolen or they lose it or it gets damaged. But hey, who am I? Cut to Part 2. They don't know where June and Jinpei are, and the Gazora starts to attack. But with the 2 of them missing, there is little that the others can do about it. Katse appears at the big city square and publicly announces that he will continue the attack with the Gazora until the Science Ninja team shows itself. As Galactor rifles are trained on some children throwing stones at Bird Katse, Ken's boomerang comes flying in and knocks out those individuals, and Jonryu also sees an opportunity to appear. Katse gets cornered, but boasts that 2 of the Science Ninja team are his prisoners. Of course, they realize this is probably true, but Ken contradicts this statement, saying that the remaining 2 members are just inside the Phoenix. Katse doesn't believe him and gets into Gezora and flees. Back at the manor, Jun and Jinpei are about to be executed by the lady of the house, the woman they supposedly rescued. Again, I think this is just Katse in disguise. When, according to Ken's plan, the Phoenix, they call this person and the Phoenix, and they show all 5 members in the cockpit of the Phoenix. And they're like, well, wait a minute. If we've got Science Ninja member teams, and how can they have all 5 members in the... Well, I guess he wasn't lying. Well, if you're not Ninja team members, we'll just kill you anyway. But they didn't do it immediately. If they're of no consequence, just kill them right then and there. But they don't. I think it's because Katsu's not quite as dumb as you think. Anyway, Ken sneaks into the manor. He finds the dummies of Jun and Jinpei, which just counters Ken's dummies on board the Phoenix to try to fool Katse that the team is intact. And it alerts the Katse that he was right after all, and they are members of the team, with a message saying that if he wants to rescue the 2, he should come to the uranium storage building. So the Phoenix hurries there. There, Gezora is flying with the building in its hands. Ken sneaks into Gezora and saves the 2 team members after Jun has installed a bomb inside Gezora. They escape together. The Science Ninja team, again consisting of all 5 members, shows itself and heads towards Katse. Gezora explodes when it touches uranium, and again, Katse is the only one who escapes the explosion and gets away. What do I think of this episode? Well, I think that Jun and Jinpei should have been long dead, and would have been if I was writing it. That's just how this plot works. But again, it's the whole thing. You can't let the characters die. I don't know. This is another episode that infers that Bird Katse is a woman as well. Overall, the first episode of the 2-parter did a decent job of setting everything up and the danger of Jun and Jinpei, but it just doesn't carry through properly in the end. This is something that tends to happen where a team member gets in trouble and should be killed, but they can't because you just can't kill off the characters in a kid's cartoon or whatever excuse. And the more I watch the show, the more I think the Galactor is from a galaxy far, far away, because their soldiers shoot their guns about as well as Imperial stormtroopers. Anyway, not the best 2-part episode, 2.5 stars. And it is what it is. Episode 34, the Evil Aurora Operation. Strange radio waves attack people as an aurora passes by overhead. Afterwards, after being hit by these radio waves, they run amok and cause grave accidents. While fishing, Ryu is also bathed in these radio waves. Because Ryu's speech and behavior are strange when he comes back to the base, an investigation is conducted. And not just strange, he acts like a cat and attacks people and growls and stuff. He doesn't actually talk. So anyway, they subdue Ryu and they put him on a table, to get medical attention. And they discovered his brainwaves are now no longer human, but like those of a cat. Soon after, Dr. Nambu is touched by those radio waves as well, and in a rage, he tries to activate the switch for the self-destruct mechanism of the team's base of Crescent Coral. Ken struggles to stop him, and Joe ends up punching him out cold. Nambu is checked, and his brainwaves are now not human, but more like that of a monkey, and a distressed one at that. This is because the radio waves are actually putting the brainwaves of animals into the people they touch. Go figure that one. Anyway, Ken and Joe take Ryu with them after he's recovered some and go to the place where Ryu got hit by the radio waves in order to try and find clues. Because they can't get any answers, though, Joe gets angry and punches Ryo in the face, which sends Ryo into the boat's panel, where he suffers an electrical shock. This shock causes him to return to his true personality. And he says, okay, I remember what happened. I got hit by the Aurora and stuff like that. But anyway, because of this, they think an electrical shock might also work in Nambu's case. But because Nambu's brain waves keep changing their frequency, the doctor that's overseeing Nambu says they have to destroy the mechanism producing the radio waves instead, and very soon, or else his mind will be lost entirely. The Phoenix is therefore mobilized, and they seek the suspicious Aurora that Ryu now remembers seeing. They find the Aurora, and what they really find inside is the Mecha Thundersaurus, but the Science Ninja team has to fight hard because the Mecha's barrier of radio waves is, even though they're protected with their helmets and stuff, it's driving them a little bit crazy. A rocket is fired, but it gets stuck in the neck of the Mecha, and it's seemingly a dud and doesn't work. But as the Mecha increases its electrical voltage, the blind shell explodes. This is because June altered the missile to create a situation in which increased voltage would cause a delayed explosion. This Mecha is destroyed, and all the people that are running amok eventually become their usual selves again. What do I think of this episode? Another cool idea on the part of the Galactor terrorists, but how it plays out and how they get defeated is dumb. I give it 2 out of 5. Episode 5, or 35 rather, Burn Desert Fires. In the country of Doria, oil springs have been recently discovered. A battle has started between the king, who is keen on the mining rights, and the prince, who is on the side of the poor, revolting people. When I say poor, revolting, they're revolting against the king. They're not revolting. Anyway, it has now become a civil war. And there's also a maneuver sleeping force outside, intent on trying to turn this into a world war. The prince, in a disadvantageous situation in this war, contacts the Science Ninja team for help. The Phoenix sneaks into the country in Firebird mode. Ken contacts Prince Ali and convinces him to talk one more time with his father, the king. Together they go to the palace, but the king's answer is a volley of bullets aimed at the prince and Ken. Ken stops the prince, who wants to attack the king in turn after they evade being attacked. But because Ken stops them, the king is able to drop a hole on the floor, and they are dropped to a subterranean prison where they find the skeleton of the real king who has been killed. He was taken prisoner and replaced by who? Bird Katse. So now that they know that the king is not the king and they got to take over everything, Ken tells Phoenix to come and get them, and they escape. At the palace, people are gathering to demand the release of Prince Ali, and then the Mecha that they build, the Mecha Moskin, attacks them with their bombs. Katse, disguised as the king, is chuckling while watching all this. Ken appears to form and cuts the escape rope which Katse is holding. Katse falls into the city streets, which are wrapped in fire. Now, you would think at the height from which they have the character fall, Katse would die, but we never see the body, so they obviously will survive somehow off camera. Elsewhere, the Mecha's nature of following every move is uncovered, and the Phoenix is able to lure it to another oil field where the Phoenix shoots it, and then the Prince shoots it with a I'm trying to think of what it's called, rocket launcher, shoulder rocket launcher, and it goes up in flames together with the oil field. The people of Dorian see the Phoenix coming out of the flames as the Firebird, and as they worship the Firebird god, they start to believe in the hope of rebuilding their country under the new leadership of the Prince. This is one of the better written episodes, although it is a bit obvious as to the conclusion of the story and what's going on. Pretty obvious that the king was going to be Katse. It's pretty straightforward. but it's still decently executed. Rating 3.5 stars. Episode 36 is Little Gotchamans, which is not my favorite title. The plot: an ISO research ship is attacked and data regarding uranium resources at the bottom of the sea is lost along with the ship. In the middle of this investigation, the Science Ninja team discovers 3 persons, a father and his 2 sons, floating out to sea. They say they witnessed the occurrence during fishing and that their ship is wrecked and they can't get back home. So they take them back to their village, but in the village where they live, the brothers Taro and Jiro and their father have the reputation of being liars. Nobody wants to listen to their testimony if they saw an apparition of a crawfish, giant crawfish, and a moving lighthouse. Ken discovers, however, that the squid that the family fished out of the sea that's in their hold is, in fact, a robot rocket, and realizes that they are telling the truth. So the ninja team decides they have to look for the lighthouse. Ken saves Taro and his younger brother, Jiro, from a lynx in the vicinity of the lighthouse. They were imitating the Science Ninja team by putting on capes and made of chicken feathers and running around fooling like kids do. This lynx, however, turns out to be a Galactor cyborg, and now they know Galactor is in fact there and involved. Taro says he knows a secret passage to the lighthouse and leads Ken and the others there. Beneath the lighthouse, there is a Galactor base inside the side of the mountain. In the ensuing battle between the ninja team and Galactor's thugs, Taro and Jiro board the lighthouse rocket, which also holds uranium resource data. The Galactor commander, thinking that he's captured members of the Science Ninja team, goes to the base where Katsei is waiting for them. While they've destroyed the base, defeated everybody, pardon me, but the crawfish mecha has escaped. So they're following the crawfish mecha to the base, and they are attacked by special metallic seaweed and rocket squids. Thousands and thousands of rocket squids are going to get blown up. In the vicinity of the attack, however, they discover the base. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly how they got out of it, but they get out of it, and they rescue the children and recover the data. Katsei, though cornered by the 5 team members again, manages to escape again using a glass partition wall. They destroy the base and take the 2 brothers home, who swear off trying to be ninjas and to stop lying. I thought this is one of the worst of the episodes of the series. I only give it a 1 star. It's just dumb. Episode 37. Renzilla the Electric Monster. Dr. Miwa is researching whether the surface of the Sanhu Lake, frozen over for the whole year, can be used to produce strong energy from the sun instead of using polarization glass. But he has gone missing. He had questions because this year the lake hadn't frozen over and seemed to have started to an investigation as to why. Nambu orders the science team to look for him since he fears the misuse of the doctor's research, but also because the doctor is a friend of his. So the team, led by the doctor's pet dog Taro, who was able to get to Nambu with a camera that showed him some information, they head toward the snowy mountains nearby. There they discover a Galactor base. The Science Ninja team and Taro are tricked by the doctor's reflection. Taro is washed away by the water falling from the ceiling of the base where the surface of the lake is located. And the Science Ninja team is captured inside walls made of reinforced, impenetrable glass. Unable to escape, Ken tries a special device he has that will shock the dead or seemingly dead Taro back to life. The dog rushes back and sneaks back into the facility and attacks the Galactor soldiers who are guarding the team and frees them. The Science Ninja team then escapes and intervenes in the test area for the mecha using a doctor's research. Ken's boomerang cuts through Katsei's mask. Hiding their face, Katsei flees. Ken, taking the doctor with him, steals one of the enemy snowmobiles and escapes from the base. But the Mecha Linjira, Katsu takes that out, and they start trying to melt everything with the power of the technology. But because the doctor is not there to check on how the mecha works properly, it overheats, and it blows up together with the base. As the team flees, Dr. Nero gets separated from them, and the dog Taro rescues him one final time from chasing Galactor thugs before going over a cliff and seemingly falling to its death. We never see the dog again, but we do later see paw prints in the snow that get blown away in the snow to suggest it survived, but the fate is never revealed. Unfortunately, this episode was damaged. What I mean by that is when I tried to play it on my DVD player, it cut and froze in different places, and I didn't get to see the whole episode, so I can't really give an opinion on what I think of this episode. Episode 38, The Mysterious Mechanized Jungle. The plot. As part of the Mantle Plan, a pollution-free city is constructed in the desert. The ISO does a lot of this, constructing cities with all their resources. Nambu and the Science Ninja team have come into the city for the inauguration. In the middle of the parade, a man who introduces himself as the archaeologist Dr. Mukashishiki is distributing leaflets for a dinosaur exhibition. Nambu and Joe are suspicious, but there isn't enough to go on. That night, the city is attacked by dinosaurs, and Ken sneaks into Dr. Mukashishki's exhibition. It turns out to be a jungled exhibition from the dinosaur period. Ken is caught by strands of ivy made of metal and barely escapes into a subterranean sewer, but his ninja bracelet is stripped away in the struggle, and he is forced to leave it behind. Of course, Mukashishki finds the bracelet, and in order to take credit, he hides it, planning to use it to lure the team back and capture them all for Galactor. Ken is severely scolded by Dr. Nambu, who then orders the science team to go get the bracelet back by any means. He also then tells he leaves the attack on dinosaurs to the Red Impulse group. He tells Ken to stay behind, but of course, he sneaks off and follows them using the same underground passages he escaped through. However, Galactor is now patrolling that area, and he is discovered. Luckily, the sewer section is so freaking large that Jinpei was able to follow him in his G4 buggy tank undetected, right, and save him. Ken joins Jinpei in the tank, and they sneak further in to discover the rest of the team has already been captured. And again, they sneak in with a freaking tank. Nobody's going to hear the tank coming. Anyway, Jinpei crashes the party, crashes into the wall with the tank, and comes out of the thing ready to free the others. But because Ken's not there, they assume the leader is missing and that they got his bracelet. Well, Ken announces himself in the tank, but of course he can't come out because they do have his bracelet, which the doctor then pulls out from under his coat. It says, "Ha, I've got it." The second command, however, freaks out and demands to know why it wasn't reported and turned over to Berg Tatse. The two fight over the wristband, and this causes enough distraction for the team to counterfight and attack the enemy. In the ensuing fight, the wristband is recovered, and the team then destroys the controls for the dinosaurs, and the threat is ended. What do I think? Well, this is another episode where those stupid wristbands are crucial. I think that they should trigger their costume changes and whatnot, but you can put the trigger somewhere else, like a belt buckle or something else as a backup in case you lose it. Especially since they just already almost lost Jun and Jinpei when they didn't have their wristbands just a few episodes earlier in episodes 32 and 33. And stuff like this bothers me because it sort of demonstrates a lack of progressive thinking, and it seems pretty damn foolish And we'll probably end up returning this again and again and again as the series goes. This is a 2 out of 5 episode. Here we go again. Episode 39, Jigo Killers. This is a 2-part episode. They're the people-eating flowers, only they aren't the people-eating flowers per se. They're the woman-eating flowers, but we'll get to that in a moment. Outside of Earth's atmosphere, a devil starship appears. Spores of the Jigo Killer plant are released towards Earth by Katse's command. Then we cut to a rainy night. Women, and only women, are attacked. They are drained of their internal liquids and mummified, leaving only their husks behind. June, who is left alone in her dance hall shop after the guys go out just to patrol or just do something because they're bored on their own, gets attacked as well, but manages to escape. She brings tissue from one of the flowers that was burned by her yo-yo bomb to Nambu. In the analysis, the results reveal that it's a flesh-eating plant from ancient Earth times, but it's not. They're not able to decide what its weak points or habits or anything else are. Now, for some reason, Nambu decides to show the team his newest invention, a specialized protective suit able to protect the wearer from all harm, and also handle pressures and be able to breathe deep inside the ocean. Because the flower only attacks women, June decides to take the suit without telling anyone and act as bait while riding throughout the city on a motorcycle. Jinbei catches her just as she leaves, and she's like, "Don't worry about it, I'm good." And Jinbei's like, "No, you're looking for trouble, I'm going to follow you." So she gets attacked, of course, and she gets eaten or consumed by the plant in front of him. She's just swallowed whole, but the suit protects her from any harm, of course. Now, for some silly reason, the wrist with the bracelet on is, of course, outside the flower, and she can't pull it inside. It's stuck outside. So she can't call anybody for help. And I roll my eyes at that. Jinpei alerts the others when he comes to because he was knocked out by the flower, which overturned his buggy. Think about this as a little shop of horrors, a giant plant. Seymour, think of it like that, okay? Only it just can't talk. Anyway, of course, the others at first don't believe him, but then Ken realizes the truth, and they take a smaller version of the flower back to Nambu for research. They are despondent about the missing June, thinking she may be dead, and they aren't really listening to Nambu, who gets miffed at them as they walk out. "Are you stupid? She's wearing my indestructible suit. Hello! Why don't you have faith in me?" Yeah. But it was a rather funny outburst. He didn't say it that way, but I mean, it's just a really cool reaction in that scene. While looking for June, the Science Ninja team receives orders to burn some of the plants to finish them off, because they have now managed to migrate to a water reservoir that serves 10 million people, and then it'll destroy everything if they don't do it. Well, they hesitate because June may still be alive among one of these giant plants. And Ken's like, "I don't want to do this, but it's the duty of our team." And even though he's grieving because he doesn't know what's happened to his friend, he drops his plane's fuel onto the flowers and is about to light it himself when the Phoenix arrives and they use a missile to blow up the flowers. Meanwhile, June is supposedly caught in the interior of one of these flowers. The flames are stirred up and all the flowers die. But from the interior of the flowers, white spores are released. Spores that apparently nobody notices because everybody knows that spores are how flowers pollinate across vast bodies of land, but whatever. So if they destroyed these flowers and potentially killed their friend for nothing, they don't know. They don't really show what happens to June. Did she die in the flames? Nothing, So that's the end of part 1. Cutting to part 2. Jinpei is now lost in mourning in June's empty shop. Irreconcilable, basically. Elsewhere, Nambu was absorbed with the research on the Jigo killer plant. He's got one in his lab. And hidden in the sewer, the spores have gone underground and have started regrowing into the Jigo killer plants, and many damage reports follow. But Ken refuses to order to mobilize the team to move out because he's driven by the remorse that he abandoned June to die. Red Impulse shows up, and beats him up to show him the importance of the responsibility that it's up to him to at least find her body if she is dead, and you have a job to do to protect the world. So get off your ass and do it. Okay. Kind of a dumb scene. I didn't like it at all. Ken's bracelet then receives a bird scramble signal, and the only way that could happen is if June was alive, or possibly if it's a trap and they have her bracelet. But despite the fact that it could be a trap, they're with hope that it is June, and so they mobilize the team. They go to Willy City, which is well equipped with sewers. They locate the bird scramble in a subterranean base, which is an ideal area for the Jigo killer plants because they're weak in the sun and they grow in darkness and water. Breaking onto the base, they are barely able to rescue June, who is now bound in the death trap where spikes are about to impale her. Now, apparently, off camera, Galactor captured her in the suit. So now Galactor has an indestructible suit that they can duplicate for all their shock troops. Just thought I'd point this out. Because otherwise, they had to take it off of her, because if they didn't, what threat is the spikes going to do? But anyway, meanwhile, Nambu discovers by coincidence that his blood causes the Jigo killer plant to wither and die. Because of this, he realizes and figures out that the plant's allergic to the Y chromosome that every male possesses, and that's why the plants only feed on women. So he builds a Y chromosome bomb and entrusts the Red Impulse team to go deliver that. Because the bomb was dropped by Impulse, the Y chromosome rain begins to fall, and each of the Jigo killer plants wither and die. They've rescued June. The crisis of humankind is over. What do I think of this? I think it's incredibly stupid. Number one, where did Galactor get the flower from if it's from ancient Earth times? It doesn't make any sense. If June is wearing an indestructible suit, then she should have been able to defend herself from Galactor and frankly taking all of them down solo. Speaking of this suit, where did it go? Like I said, she wasn't wearing it in the death trap because if it's indestructible, the spikes wouldn't have been able to hurt her either. She wouldn't have been freaking out. She would have been just laughing at them. So this means before, like I said, Galactor now has a suit that they can duplicate for all their foot soldiers, which means the team is screwed because there's thousands of those guys to their 5 members of the ninja team. Now, I realize this suit's sort of a MacGuffin to get the story where it needs to go, but when you have that kind of a plot flaw, you have to resolve it. So hopefully it'll get resolved or at least addressed in a later episode. The flowers is a threat and their weakness. They're kind of somewhat clever, but they should have just been a flower from Galactor's homeworld that only fit on women because all of Galactor's race are female or shapeshifters. Oh, snap. Think about that for a moment. The Leader X and Berkatze, who is androgynous but has clearly been hinted at as being female posing as a male, are really the only Galactor race members on the show. All the others are just ordinary criminal human thugs who have been brainwashed or are just plain stupid and are working for Galactor thinking they're going to get something out of the Earth's destruction. So this would make much more sense in telling me this plant existed in the age of the dinosaurs. Where the hell could Galactor come across it? In some sort of Jurassic Park style, encased in amber or something? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I also have to wonder, as people seem to be able to recognize the team members and the Gatchaman wristband, why June's wristband wasn't also taken along with the suit. Obviously, so that she should call for help with the bird scramble signal. But given that you've already demonstrated the Galactors members are supposed to be able to recognize the wristband from having Ken's, and remember in 38, Dr. Mukashiski, grabbed Jinpei's arm and asked him about his wrist because he suspected him as a team member just because he spotted Jinpei's wrist having medical tape covering the wrist device. as a disguise before Ken lost his wristband in the facility. So clearly, at least the upper level of the Galactor commanders are trained to look for it. So that was really bad writing. Now, I would have shown where they did capture her and shown that she managed to get off the silent alert beacon before the wrist device was taken away and the leader wasn't cognizant enough to check it or destroy it. That would have been more logical and would have been better than the scene with the fight between Red Impulse and Ken, because Red Impulse is supposed to be his dad. Let me go beat up my own kid and tell him to get his shit together. That doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I'm really not a big fan of this two-parter, but I'll give it 2.5 stars. And that is all up to episode 40. That's where we leave off. Next week will be part 3, episodes 41 to 60, and we'll also talk about some of the extras on the DVD set to break up some of the monotony on these episodic reviews. So we'll see you next Saturday for more Gotchaman talk, and I thank you for watching. And we'll catch you next time. And but in the meantime, before I get something done here, if you like this episode or you think others might, I'd appreciate it. As always, if you hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you have questions or comments, you can find me on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRaven2. You can see my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven, exclusively on YouTube. Again, if you want to reach out social media, email quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if I don't answer back on that, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. And that's all for now. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend, folks.